Okay, welcome everybody. It's that day again. We are here in the B2B Growth Lab having a conversation today about the differences between coaching and criticism. I think there's massive differences there, hopefully. But the whole idea of this stuff is how can you turn feedback loops into things that help you transform mistakes into momentum. I got some pretty interesting data on this stuff recently. The main idea here is, again, we're speaking to the mid-level, to the managers. Whether you're managing yourself, whether you're wearing that t-shirt that says CEO and still doing the labor, whether or not you've just made a new hire and you're trying to onboard somebody, most people see mistakes as some sort of a failure, including those people you're onboarding. And so I believe you need to move away from the criticism and into coaching. And I think you have to teach people to do that for themselves. You have to do a lot of kind of deeper work that changes the way they think about their work, because when we take mistakes and we turn them into failures, it kills psychological safety. You can watch people beat themselves up in front of you, but it will kill your team as well, especially if there's a hierarchical position where it's just top-down criticism, that whole like leaning over the pulpit type stuff. So today we're going to break down how to reframe errors, how to take breakdowns and turn them into breakthroughs, how to put mistakes and make fuel for development, and overall just building a culture where learning beats fear and performance actually accelerates. A, criticism is not a strategy of any sort, growth or otherwise. B, you want to build a positive, repeatable system, and that takes positive reinforcement, not negative. C, you want to make failure a normal thing because it's actually how we learn. Whole bunch of developmental stuff about that. I don't know anybody who, walked out of the womb, so to speak. Like, we're not deer. We can't be up and active minutes after hitting the ground. And so we need a lot of help, and we forget that we went through that process a long time ago and continuously. So how do you want to start unpacking this?
Oh, geez, it's like you read my most recent LinkedIn post, right? Like, too many leaders get promoted, and the only model they've seen is parent-child. And they don't understand how to lead people. They start treating them like children. You hear many first-time leaders say, "Oh, I treat them like my children."
Right.
Well, I think every adult could agree they're not a child, and they don't want to be treated like a child. So if and when that's your model, you inspire resentment, right?
Right.
You're constantly giving, right, feedback like that sucked, or that was too blank, or right, that didn't work. That's not actionable, right? That's not what good looks like.
If you want validation of that concept, find out how many people resent their parents or an older sibling.
Right. So they leave and they become hopeless. And when your team members become hopeless, the performance goes down. Ultimately, they start looking. And so much of this is what lies at the baseline root cause of so much turnover that we see in the marketplace right now, right? Mm-hmm. The voluntary turnover overwhelmingly has to do with my leader was an idiot. They didn't treat me like an adult, right? They didn't. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today, right? It's we talk coaching over criticism, but the maybe shortened alternate title would be how to treat people like adults who came to work, right? Like,
right.
Come on.
Right. And let's anchor some math here for a second. On the employee side,
right?
What's the opportunity cost of, this job sucks. I guess I'll start job hunting while I'm supposed to be doing something else behind my terminal. Oh, I found another place to go. and they hired me.
Right.
Is that like a 1 week lull in between paychecks, or maybe two?
The lull between paychecks. Are you the employer side or the employee side?
We're on the employee first. I wanted to really hit the pain today. So the opportunity cost of that is like, I might miss 1 week of check.
Oh, and it's minimal. Many of them will take the week off. They'll go on
Perfect.
vacation, right?
Perfect.
So
on the employee side, the opportunity cost is a week at an all-inclusive.
right.
Now, fill us in, Rob. What's the employer cost of that turnover?
Cost of turnover is 213% of the average salary of the position you turned over. Most of it is soft cost. A lot of it is hard cost. So yeah, 213 times whatever the number is.
Let's use 50K.
Okay.
What's 213 times $50,000?
You're well over $100,000. You're at like 106,050. Yeah. Yeah.
So they lose a $1,600 paycheck and you lose $116,000.
Right. Right.
Nice. Okay, let's continue.
It sounds like we can afford to develop our leaders, doesn't it?
I feel like I can spare an extra 50 or 60 grand.
To put on some classes, to hire some coaches, to invest some time and money in being a role model, training your people in coaching methodology, and then driving that behavior change and culture through your organization. And then, oh, look at that bottom line. It's even better, right?
Yeah. I'll throw a little side note in here for a second, because I had a meeting with a gentleman earlier today. His personality assessment thing, I'm poorly memorized it because he's going to send me the info, but I think it's 40 years old. It's been used by Fortune 500s, but the price point's $275. So let's just throw that into the math. And you were saying, Zach, and welcome.
Well, thank you. I was saying that, anecdotally, one of the things that the Boy Scouts used to do really, really well, or really, really poorly, was this investing in leadership.
Right.
And so I was the leader of a ecclesiastically connected Boy Scout group. And one of the things that I made sure to happen was that all of the leaders would receive all of the training, and that they were going on a regular basis. And one of the things that changed as a result is that typically parents would send their young men to our church building, and they would say, okay, what are we doing tonight? And it would be, okay, well, haven't really planned anything, so we're just going to play basketball. We're playing basketball tonight. Hope you enjoy it. And after about 3 weeks in a row of playing nothing but basketball, it gets pretty old, and then those boys stop coming because guess what? We're going to play basketball tonight, and I don't want to do that. Well, after we got trained, what we did is the Boy Scouts has what's called a boy-led organization ethos, where it's the youth set the agenda. And as they get older, they actually do more of even the administrative tasks. Mm-hmm. And the leaders really are just there to facilitate conversations. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that we noticed is that when everybody got trained as a leader and started doing that, we had more participation and attendance. The young men were having a better time because they were doing really cool stuff that they wanted to do. And all of a sudden the organization was thriving. Tying that into business, when you're willing to invest in the training and leadership of your team, it allows those teams to take ownership of what they're doing. And when they care and take ownership of the end result, those results improve because their name, their credibility, their reputation is tied to those results. And I think that that's one of the things that we typically don't think about is those knock-on effects of leadership training.
I think that's absolutely brilliant. It ties together some of the stuff that we've been touching on in the last week. A week ago yesterday, we got to spend an hour with the the powers of that be behind revenue architecture. The people who do the work, the people who publish it, the people whose work we draft, because again, they use their stuff in SaaS, we use their stuff everywhere. They published some very interesting stuff. One of them was, there's more than one slide of this, but in the 86 companies they worked with in 2025, between 10 million and 1 billion in annual revenue, this one pattern showed up. The biggest inhibitor in terms of growth was the lack of a cohesive system, end-to-end system that had continuity. Because obviously, if your team doesn't have that, how could you give it or offer it to your customers, right? Your customer journey is fragmented. And I like how the way this guy thinks, because he takes super complex data. There was another slide of like all the different issues and the points for or against and the mathematics behind it. But instead of going granular into that, the next slide came up and it was like, this is what it's like playing the game. And you saw the proper clean outline of half of a soccer pitch. And then the Picasso version of the soccer pitch. And he's like, that's what the customer journey looks like. Right. And it's just all wonky and crooked and very artistic, but extremely fragmented. And, you know, we're operations specialists. We're here to give the tools to the team. We need people there to bring the culture and the human side of it in. We know that, we resource it, we lean on it. But I know how important it is, how valuable it is, and how much it works, because one of my mentors ran a consulting firm out of Vancouver for 15 or so years. They guaranteed doubling the bottom line of any business they worked with without spending a dollar on marketing or sales, ever.
Wow.
And it's because they went in and did that exact same end-to-end cohesive operating system in the culture. Right? Everybody's pointing in the same direction, speaking the same language, knows exactly why they're there, all that stuff, to the point that they'd actually take certain HR roles and be like, your job is to find these 10 people new jobs where they'll be happy.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
really
I
like
think,
that.
you know, I've been steeped in that for a long time, but it's part of why, like, I agree. I know it's not my wheelhouse or my specialty, but I agree so much with, you know, the stuff that comes out of Rob, for example, and that, because I've seen the evidence of it. I've been fortunate enough to like assist and work inside of that environment and just see the difference, hear the stories, and look at the numbers.
Well, and this is something that is so often overlooked, because I think that we fail to look at businesses as interconnected systems that impact each other. And typically what we do is we look at this silo. This is the accounting function. This is the sales function. This is the delivery function. This is the admin function. Like we don't look at how those interact. And it's like, if you went to a doctor and they just talked about your liver and didn't talk about how your liver interacts with the rest of your body and the rest of like how having an unhealthy liver impacts the rest of your body and your overall health, like that doctor would be an idiot. And I would not recommend. It's like Seinfeld, where it's like everybody talks about how their doctor's the best. Nobody talks about how theirs is the worst. He's the worst. Stay away. Right? Like, but because we're not looking at businesses as interconnected systems, we're missing out on how the HR component and this leadership component and this training component and this proper management component impacts every other aspect of the work that you're doing, for the good or the bad. I think, Rob, you had a story about a company that was like, if any sales rep left the company before the quarter was up, the sales team manager got their comps.
Right. Yeah. And then they wondered, scratch your head, why the average tenure of the sales rep was less than 40 days, right? Like,
because if I get 3 of them fired, I can go on vacation.
Right. So your incentive structure does not promote the right behavior and the right culture, right? All too often we talk about the cost of turnover, but the other side of that is what's the value of loyalty?
Yeah.
Right? We can all hopefully think of at least one leader where if they called tomorrow and said, I would love to bring you back and work with you again, we would be really struggling to say yes, right? Like really thinking about it, right? Yeah. But the sadness is there's probably only one of those for each of us. So,
and it's not designed, right? Like the whole point of that, I saw a revenue architecture training. That's all he talks about is like most of this stuff doesn't exist because it's not designed, and the culture is the exact same way. Like it's thrown together. If you want to know what it's going to look like when you just throw a bunch of people together and let them figure it out for themselves, go to high school.
Right.
Right? Like those guys sit at that table, those guys are over there, they don't talk to each other.
That's how they run it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what self-organizing is. It's not brilliant. It definitely isn't workable.
We say all the time, culture is what you tolerate.
Yes.
Fail to hold leaders accountable to a standard of performance, a character model, a system of behaviors, right? Consistent with what your vision, mission, and values are. If you don't do that, you are what you tolerate, you reap what you sow. That 70% annual turnover you're experiencing is costing you a boatload of money.
Well, and it's impacting your ability to grow. It's impacting that's why I brought up this interconnectedness of the human body, because a business is the same way. A business is an organism and everything is interconnected.
Yeah.
So it's like you're looking at your sales turnover and you're saying, okay, I wonder why we can't grow fast enough. Well, it's because you're losing your sales reps every 40 days.
Right.
And why am I losing my sales reps every 40 days? Well, because they're getting fired. Why are they getting fired? Oh, well, and just starting to explore that whole situation. And then all of a sudden you're realizing, oh, shoot, I'm incentivizing my sales managers to get rid of these guys when they hit the 40-day mark because they've built up a pipeline that's closing. And then the sales managers get the pipeline. All of this is interconnected. And with businesses, because we're not looking at the interconnectedness and valuing the work that leadership training, not necessarily like role specific tactical training, but like leadership strategic level training can have, we're shooting ourselves in the foot with the growth of the company because we're not training tomorrow's leaders who can then train the leaders for the day after that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So every one of us, what do I want to say? At the org level, one of the best metrics you could possibly track, and then ask why, maybe up to 5 times to analyze, is turnover within someone's organization. So leader by leader, all the way down the chain, how much turnover, and then bucket the why. Voluntary, involuntary, for cause, right? Like figure it out. If all those reasons, right, 70% of the reasons underneath me are got promoted to a position of higher responsibility internally or externally, that's a gold star. That person gets a gold star. If it's they left with no job, that's minus whatever equity you had, right? Like it was so bad they left with no job, right? That's the worst. So let's track that metric for every leader in our business. And it's not that hard to do if you're doing exit interviews and have some kind of survey upon exit. And then let's hold those leaders accountable to improvement. Get them a coach, send them to some Blanchard situational leadership training, sit in on their meetings, watch how they behave, give them feedback. Hey, I don't know if you know this, but all the name calling you do in that meeting really isn't psychological safety. right? All those 4-letter words you were unpacking, not super helpful. When you called that guy a blankety blank or called that woman a such and such, not really helpful, right? So let's pull back the name calling and instead maybe talk about what good looks like, right? Maybe try that.
Well, and why not even front load that work, right? If you're going to hire someone for a role that is 6 figures, like a manager, why aren't you checking their skills in that leadership department from the very beginning and testing that and putting them in those situations? So like Jacob was talking about, that personality test. I know a guy who built a 9-figure business in an incredibly competitive environment on the back of all things, the color code. And just using the color code to say, hey, your color code fits in this role more than that role. And like, this is the training we need to give you to make sure you do a really good job. Like something as simple as that. You can do Myers-Briggs, you can do all sorts of different things. But at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're front loading that work and then providing the supplemental materials that they need to really, really thrive.
Yeah, if only we knew some people who knew how to do this kind of work and help businesses, right? We should look for those guys.
And then what I appreciate the most is just the cost differential. Because the actual cost of the test or something like that, right? Like, it is so insignificant compared to the wage, especially if you keep them over time.
Right. And argue it as you may to the position. I can hand you a profile for almost every job in the professional workforce that the bottom line of that says 25x ROI, right? Like easy. The work has been done. The rigor is real. You want a 1-page business case for a customer service rep that makes sense? Done. Sales rep? Done. Right? Accounting executive, sales executive? Yeah, done. Right?
Wait. Hold on a sec, Rob. Are you telling me that I can be hiring for a role, get a good idea of what the best fit is for that role, and then find out if the person is a good fit for that role so I can match them to it? Wait.
Outrageous!
So my hiring decision wouldn't be how they answered the questions in the form, possibly informed by AI when they filled it out, or the color of shirt they're wearing.
And
or
this is
other biases that you hold, right?
Right.
Oh man, if they were wearing their Minnesota Vikings necktie in the interview.
Yeah, so we can do.
I wish there was a better video guy and I could cut in the job interview section of Step Brothers right now, but let's move on.
Well, I think that this is important because this is one of the things that I think has happened over the last 30 years. And my generation in particular is bearing the brunt of this, is the digitization of the interview and hiring process and the automation of that, right? It really goes well for the people who can game the system up front and answer the AI questions just right, know the keywords that the AI is searching for to get the interview. It's not necessarily finding someone, because you look at the resume and the resume says, well, you know, the AI says, well, it has to have these things on the resume. Well, you might find someone who has 20 years of experience in that role who could do an amazing job, but because they didn't go to grad school, they're not going to get considered for that role.
Right.
And so we're actually shooting ourselves in the foot with this over-reliance on artificial intelligence and optimization in the hiring process.
Well, let's get into that for a second. And yay bots, right? Yay agentic AI. What's the key to getting them to perform? You have
to treat them like an employee, look over their shoulder, keep on re-educating them, give them guardrails.
Work, right?
Yeah.
So if a positionally ignorant talent acquisition person can't train the bot on what the right keywords are for the position you're hiring for, if the job description is poorly written, right? So they're hiring for a training person, but they put SPHR in there, which is an HR credential, right? Rather than APTD or CPTD, and then detail it out accordingly. The AI looks for HR words in there when you're trying to hire a training person, and then it screens out all the wrong people, right? I mean, you got to train your AI if you're going to do that.
Oh, absolutely. And even when they bring in headhunters, it doesn't necessarily get the job done either, because if those headhunters are ignorant or incompetent with dealing with this, then it causes the same problem. Right. And this isn't to say don't use AI in the hiring process. Right. This is to say you have to understand and one, provide the training that people need to get the job done. But two, you have to really get clear on what the role is that you need to hire for and the skill sets that you need, and be kind of agnostic about education and everything else. And that becomes very difficult, or even just like the level of experience that someone has. And that can become very difficult when someone in the HR has to put their neck on the line. And if they get a wrong hire, they might get fired too.
Absolutely. Since we're touching on the AI stuff for a moment here, the analogy I've been using recently, because I do think it really matters, is who would you give the car keys to? And you only have a choice. Somebody has to get the keys. So one of them is a 2-year-old toddler and the other is a teenager. Because depending on which AI you're deploying, those are your options. And you have to be really careful about this stuff, because again, you're going to hand over the keys to a certain part of your business to this, and then you still do have to do oversight, education, and training.
Right.
And no matter how well developed it is, there's no currently AI on the planet that's more than like 12 to 14 years old in its ability to operate, action, or even how long they've been working on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And most of it is, a large portion is like 9 to 18 months, depending on the company you're interacting with. The tool you just bought, the shiny object that you found in the scroll that's going to magic bean whatever and solve your problems. So yeah, that's something to just be really careful of, in my opinion.
Well, and even these companies like Bamboo HR, right, that are these AI hiring systems, a lot of times what they're doing now is just slapping a ChatGPT interface on an old system and saying, oh yeah, we're AI enabled, but it's the same system that has the same biases in it, same root problems.
Secondary to that, and something that I found, and this happens culturally all the time too in organizations, the prompting and the way it's interacting with the model underneath it doesn't evolve. It was built on a set it and forget it. And we have been building our own employees and running them in parallel with certain tools that I bought my staff to test. And they're just discarding the tools because of that. They're like, this thing performs 10 times better. It's getting better responses, more consistent results, whatever the job is. This thing's evolving and learning. And this thing, again, because of the prompting and the interface, right? It's just not functional.
Mm-hmm.
Not so different than the evolution of human beings, right? To go back to our subject for tonight, how do you coach? How do you drive development and performance? Do they know what good looks like? If they don't, shaming them, not helpful, right?
How do you build a culture inside of an organization?
Oh.
Right? Like that's really, I think, the basis of what today really is if you're not willing to do that, you probably won't solve any of these problems.
If you won't ever hold people accountable to a standard of performance as a leader, right? Visioning, transparency, trust, psychological safety, right? Knowing coaching models, knowing leadership models, right? Being a developer of people. If you grow those people out to bring on people of different attributes, to be totally generic about it, right? Because you want your workforce to look different. Well, you're baby out with the bathwater, right? You just let go of your most valued, valuable, respected leaders, right? So, yes, results matter. All the results aren't always the most obvious ones that you measure as a business. Oftentimes, that show up on exit interviews or engagement surveys or 360 reviews when you aggregate those across the org.
Well, and one thing I want to be clear about, and maybe I misunderstand what you're saying, but it seems like what you're saying is not don't measure performance, but that's not all. Because there's a quote that I really love. It says, when performance is measured, performance improves.
Right.
When performance is measured and reported, the rate of improvement accelerates. And so part of this is making sure that you're measuring and reporting the right metrics. And I think that what you're saying is not, don't measure things, but like the soft skills are equally important to that measurement, because the soft skills are going to supplement that, what you're measuring, and the hard skills that they have.
It's functionally a balanced scorecard, right? Operationally, what do we say? SQDC, right? SQDC. Safety first, quality, delivery, cost, right? Like that's a balanced scorecard for an operational production workflow, right? Do the same thing. You manage your sales organization. If all you manage is revenue, that's one column. Where's the other three columns?
Yeah.
Right? So there is a balanced scorecard that is possible for every work group, if you think about it, that balances the business outcome, the humanistic outcome, some dimension of quality, right? Customer retention, margin, profitability, right? Turnover. It doesn't have to be 42 metrics on an overly complex bowling chart. It doesn't have to be. You can get it down to like 4 or 5 metrics that give you a holistic, balanced scorecard view of your org. Maintain the culture, get the turnover, get the performance, right? It's possible.
Well, it is, but I think it's, so one of the things that sticks in my mind is I had a mentor who actually had Ken Iverson give him a tour of a Nucor plant. And this was right when Nucor was really starting to take off and just scale like crazy. And he came in and they were taking the tour, and he said, my friend says, well, do you have any problem keeping your company staffed, your plant staffed? And he says, no. In fact, whenever we have lines out the door of people who are driving in just to give us their resume. And then if an accounting position opens up, like, you better believe that people are lining up, waiting just to hand in an application. And he says, why? And then they hear this sound in the background, and Ken says, oh, here, let me show you. There is an accident on the floor. And my mentor goes with Ken Iverson on the floor, and he says, you see that clock? And there's a big clock on the wall. He says, you see that clock? Watch that clock. And it starts ticking, and it's a 30-minute clock. And he says, they're going to have production going back in 30 minutes. And he's like, no, wait, this is like on the floor of any other steel mill. This would shut down operations the rest of the day. And Ken Iverson says, just watch. So they watch, and wouldn't you know it, they have things running within 30 minutes. And he says, what's your secret? Like, how are you doing this? He says, they are paid a portion of the profits of the business.
Yes.
They're incentivized. And so if production stops, that's money out of their pocket. That's why people are lining up around the block to come and work with us. And yes, obviously safety, quality, all of that stuff, cost, all of that stuff matters. Right. But at the end of the day, the thing that hits them the most is what they're being measured on, which is, did they get this up and running within 30 minutes? Because if they didn't, then they miss out on a bonus for that week. Right. And so it's like, I think that what we are tracking is really important, because on the good side, it can get your mini steel mill back up and running within 30 minutes. On the bad side, it can cause a major scandal like what happened with Wells Fargo.
Yes.
Yes.
Balanced scorecard works against people gaming the system at the expense of the customer, or at the expense of safety, or at the expense of however they're going to game it, right? Spot on, Zach. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I think that, what we measure is as important as the skills that we teach in terms of creating performance, improving performance.
Yep.
But to what we talked about earlier, if you're going to change what you're measuring, you have to be very clear, and you have to provide training so that your team feels like that's something that they can actually do, and like they're not being thrown to the wolves to try and figure it out.
It's got to be fair. It's got to be reasonable. It's got to be achievable, right? You have to be able to invest in them, tools and competence, skill, right? All of that. If it's not fair, they're going to quit anyway, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Be a quality leader means to be a coach, to be humanistically present, to care about people holistically, know their spouse's name, their kids' names, maybe their pets' names, right? You got to be on the team if you're going to lead the team. I'll get off my soapbox, but there's a lot of good stuff we're covering here. Be a coach. Stop being a parent.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts or things that you could say are actionable?
I would have one word of caution, if we could have a little humor at the end here. Too often in baseball and softball, coaches slap their players on the rear end. I would refrain from that when you're coaching in the professional workplace. Other than that, there's a lot of good lessons to be learned.
Well said. Measure the right data is how I would.
Don't run the risk of a sexual harassment suit. Always right. Good advice.
Right.
I would add to this as well. So it wasn't Gartner. I can't remember which company did it. It was a big consulting firm, and they did a lot of research, and they came up with some key things that employees need in order to be retained in the organization. But it goes along with what we're talking about, and it boiled down to 3 P's: purpose, performance, and productivity.
Mm-hmm.
Purpose, right? Does their purpose align with your purpose as an organization? And that requires, as a leader, that you understand, why are they there in the first place, right? Like, what is their goal that they're trying to create from that experience in that role? Number 2 is productivity. Like, are they performing? Do they feel like they're performing? And are they being compensated for their performance, for the productivity? And number 3 is performance. Are you providing coaching and helping them achieve their like a higher level of performance over time? Because there's a difference between having 10 years of experience and living the first year over and over again 10 times.
Well said. Very well said. The only person who likes that job is Santa.
Yeah, that's true.
Same thing every year. Everyone else, we want it to change.
Well, and notice Santa's not rebuilding the systems every year. No. Santa he's learned from his mistakes. So he's got thousands of years of experience, right? He hasn't relived year 1 1,000 times.
Absolutely.
How did we end up here? It's like operationalizing Santa, right? In the digital age. Right? It's funny. Just too funny.
Yeah.
Let's take care of the humans. Believe it or not, even in the face of AI, the humans become an increasingly differentiating factor, because
we're going to need them. And when you have less of them, they're going to be even more critical.
Oh, funny how that works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That human
100%.
element is, I have found in my own career and experience that human element has made the difference for me between $0 and $500,000.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
100%.
Yep.
That human element is going to become more and more vital. So, as people ask me, and this is kind of an aside, but I think it relates. As people ask me, what would you tell me as I'm getting ready for my career? How would you help me? I always tell them, go and read the great books of history. Go and read Les Miserables and A Tale of Two Cities and Harry Potter, and read as many of those books as you can, because they're going to teach you about the human condition. They're going to teach you how to empathize with other people and how to see the world differently and expand your horizons and increase your emotional intelligence. Books like EQ, they can only do so much. Studying emotional intelligence can only do so much, but actually learning to see the world through other people's eyes, through novels and things like that, does far more. And so go read those books, because the thing that will be the biggest differentiating factor between you and everyone else, if you all have the same skill set, is your ability to relate to somebody else.
Absolutely. It's a great way to close it off. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thanks for hanging out with us. And as always, comments, ideas, anything benefits everybody.
Yep. Bring it.